Hey everybody, welcome to our first episode of 2023. Really appreciate you tuning in. Really excited for today's topic. So this episode is going to be a little bit different because normally what we do is listen to an inbound phone call. I want to get into quickly the background on why we're going to talk about outbound phone calls today. A lot of you probably know Scott Maldonado, and he gets out into the field a lot, working with recruiters across the country. And one of the things that he does is something called the Ask It Basket, where when he's out doing training, he'll ask recruiters to come up with questions that they hope he addresses throughout the training. And one of the questions was this specifically, which is, hey, how should we approach inbounds and outbound phone calls differently? And so I thought it was a super solid question, something that we should cover together. The other thing that I thought was important to mention is how many inbound phone calls do you take a day? It's going to vary, right, from fleet to fleet, but let's just give it an average of somewhere between 5 and 10 inbound phone calls. How many outbound phone calls are you making? Naturally, you're not going to connect on every single one of those calls, but you could be making in the range of anywhere between 40, 50, 100 outbound phone calls per day. So it feels pretty important to not only do a phenomenal job on inbound phone calls, but to make sure we're crushing it with outbound phone calls as well. I want to start off by talking about the 3 I's, okay? And you'll notice today we're going to do things in groups of letters. We're going to talk about the I's and we're going to talk about the P's, okay? So the I's are this: interested, interesting, and interested. So we'll dive into what on earth does that even mean? Interested, interesting, and interested. So the 4 P's that we're going to talk about today is how to achieve those 3 I's that we just talked about. So the 4 P's today, and I've got my notes in front of me here so I can glance down occasionally to keep us on track. But the 4 P's are prep, purpose, problem, and plan. So once again, let's talk real quickly about those I's. So the steps we want to go through here, and I'll write this down. Interested. The reason we're starting here is because we often say, hey, people don't want to talk to you unless you're interesting, right? But I think we need to go and take it a step back and say, people don't want to talk to you unless you show you're interested in who? In them, right? So we're showing a genuine interest in who we're talking to. Then, once we've got their attention, we've built some curiosity, we want to be interesting, right? So one thing Scott Miller likes to say a lot is when we're talking about a phone call, he likes to say, hey, what happened if the phone call ended without success, we'll say. What happened right before that call ended? What was the last thing you said? Because it probably wasn't interesting if they went ahead and tried to end that phone call. So how can we be more interesting? And then interested is where we hope the driver ends, right? So we showed an interest in them, told them something interesting because we built that curiosity, and then enlightenment, and then commitment, which comes with them being interested. So how are we going to do that? All right, I'm going to grab another color. And we're going to talk about the first P, which is prep, okay? So going into an outbound phone call, we do have a few advantages over an inbound phone call, which is we should already have some information available to us about that individual. It may not be much. It may be, just when they filled out a short form or an application or placed a phone call, right, a voicemail of some sorts. But what do you know about them? Take a little bit of time to review what you know about them, because then we can go into the call with some specifics. The other thing with outbound phone calls is part of preparation is our mindset, because it can become very easy to after making 15, 20, 25 calls and not getting a hold of anyone, our energy starts to drop. And then we finally do get somebody on the phone. We got to bring it, right? We got to bring that energy up. And so part of prep is realizing this. All right, so we've got two lines here, and we've got to understand that with an outbound phone call, we're interrupting somebody's day. They're doing something, right? So their comfort level, which is this line over here, is probably, let's say it's up here somewhere. Well, as soon as they get a phone call and they're not really sure who it is, why are they calling, all these questions start going through their mind, that comfort level is going to drop potentially below just a normal comfort level. So one of our first goals then is thinking about how can we bring that back up to at least normal. And gosh, if we really did a good job of showing an interest in them, being interesting and getting their interest, hopefully that's even higher than where we started, okay? So it all begins with good preparation. If we did good preparation, then we can go into the call with a very specific, which is the second P, purpose. So we want to make that very, people aren't going to give us much time, so we need to make it very clear very quickly what we're calling about. So it could be as simple as, hey, this is Seth at Becker Transportation. I'm following back up with you about the phone call you placed, the voicemail you left, the application you filled out. So I'm making my purpose very clear about why I'm calling. Then we can get into the third P very quickly, which is I want to break the ice and get them talking, right? Everybody loves to talk about who? About themselves, naturally, right? We're showing an interest in them. How can we quickly formulate a question then to ask them about what was it that caused them to leave a voicemail, make a call, fill out a short form, or an application? Let's just ask them. Now we're getting them talking about themselves of, well, I just filled it out because I was looking for a new opportunity. Oh, well, tell me about that. Why are you looking for a new opportunity? We're being interested in them, right? What's their motive? What's the problem they're trying to solve? Now, one thing we also have to be prepared for is what's the most common, we'll call it an objection, that you're going to hear when placing outbound phone calls is, oh, I already found something, right? So are you prepared to address that when they, mention that they've already found a job? Their search is over, right? So one of the things I like to say when I hear that is, hey, that doesn't surprise me, right? Good drivers like yourself are always going to be in high demand. Most of the drivers I speak with are already working with someone. However, most of the drivers I speak with are also open to hearing about other opportunities just to make sure they've got the best one out there. Would you be open to hearing about what we could offer you? It's all about them, right? But it's nice. It's a nice little pattern of something you can say where, who wouldn't want to hear about a great opportunity to make sure that they're that fear of missing out, right? Well, shoot, yeah, what is that opportunity about? It creates curiosity, which is something we've mentioned before, is when we show an interest and they've got some curiosity, we can then be interesting, which takes us to our final P, which is plan. Now that we've got curiosity and we can show some enlightenment, right? Teach them something, share what that opportunity looks like, we now become interesting to them because we took the time up front to learn about them. The final piece here is interested, is if we did those first few things that we talked about there, they're going to want to learn more. They're going to ask questions. Even if they already found something, maybe what you offer is better than what they currently have, right? So it gets them thinking about that. Another thing I like to talk about is, hey, we offer the best driving job in the industry. So even if we're not going to work together today, I'm confident that at some point in the future, we'll be working together. Another great statement that builds some curiosity of, wow, okay, what makes you say that? I'd encourage you to put some time into your process for outbound phone calls and inbound phone calls, because there are differences there. And understanding the differences about, interested, interesting, interested, how we bring back up their comfort level, that's going to make a big difference in how far we can take that conversation. And it's just that. It's a conversation with human beings, right? You hear a lot of chatter about scripts and, hey, what cold calling and what are those strategies and those tactics I need to use up front to gain somebody's interest? I think it's a whole lot more simple than that. Be human, right? Show a real interest in people and the things they care about, and that'll open the door to you to share some things with them that may make their lives better. So inbound versus outbound, keep those things in mind, and we'll continue to listen to calls in the future. And maybe it won't just be outbound phone calls, but we'll listen or inbound phone calls, but we'll listen to some outbound phone calls together as well. Appreciate you joining. We'll see you next time.